Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome members and officers to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, and also welcome anyone watching online. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain the proceedings, how the proceedings will work, and to undertake a roll call of those attending remotely. Thank you, Susan.
Can I confirm the following officer joining us remotely can hear us and that we can hear them? Rachel Cooper?
Yes, good evening. I can hear you.
Good evening. Are there any other officers in attendance remotely tonight that I haven't called out? If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. The normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? I will now hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, apologies for absence. I received apologies from Councillor Claire Billing. Councillor Nick Debenham is here. Good. Are there any further apologies? So we don't know about there. So it may appear. It's Councillor Griffiths may appear. Thank you. Item 2, minutes. 2 sets of minutes from the 9th of January and the 29th of January 2024. I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 9th of January and the 29th of January. Propose and second, Can I have a proposer, please? I will propose. If someone would like to check a second. Councillor Mansell, thank you. On that, should we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 3, notification of other business. There is no other business. Item 4, Chair's announcements. In accordance with the Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the Council's YouTube channel as well as on the Council's ModGov site alongside the documents of this meeting. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. For the purpose of clarification, 4.8.23a of the Constitution does not apply to this meeting. Therefore, a member may leave the room during the debate and consideration of that item and be able to vote. However, please be mindful of the business on the agenda and wherever possible, leave at an appropriate point in the proceedings. Item 5, public participation. There is none. Item 6, urgent and general acceptance items. There are none. Item 7, called in items. There are no called in items. Item 8, members' questions. There are no members' questions. Item 9, resolutions of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Melanie Simpson to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. So there were 2 referrals made at the January Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting to Cabinet. Those being the empty home strategy, which was approved by Cabinet on the 6th of February, and also the council tax premiums for empty and second homes, which was referred to full council by Cabinet. Council considered that matter at the meeting on 29th of February, where it was agreed to increase the level of council tax premiums payable and include a council tax premium charge for properties determined as a second home. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mel. So the recommendation is that the content of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee resolution be noted. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Barnes. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Should we go to debate? No debate? Should we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 10, draft overview and scrutiny annual report 2023 to 2024. The report is in draft form at the moment. It is missing the stats because they cannot be added until after this meeting. So we've got this meeting stats as well. It also will need a forward by the chair. One thing that I noticed was missing, and I'll ask for your thoughts on this, that although sorry, I've lost my words. So I'll start again, the sentence again. That we have not included in the report the call to accounts. Did you find that? Shall we add the call to accounts, reference to the call to accounts? Welcome, Councillor Griffiths. So the recommendation is that the committee considers and comments on the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee 2023-2024 as attached as Appendix A with the amendments that we've mentioned, additions we've mentioned, prior to consideration by the council. Can I have a proposer, please? Proposer, Councillor Levitt, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Munsell, thank you. Shall we go to debate? Councillor Munsell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for pointing out the absence and the omission of the call to account. It's as overview and scrutiny, it's obviously very important, that we ensure the full council is aware of everything that we're doing, and the call to accounts play an important role in that. And certainly, I think in the future, it's a mechanism of which we should be using more often in order to actually provide that scrutiny and to ensure that matters of importance to the district are investigated thoroughly. But also, I just want to say that I think over the last year, we've made an awful lot of progress on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I think that's something that we should be proud of. I think we need to make sure that we're reflecting on what the LGA has said in its peer review and ensure that we're having great emphasis on securing those improvement points. And I hope that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, whoever forms that after the election in May, continues that work of holding the council and the administration to account and developing policy of which is going to be beneficial to residents in North Hertfordshire.
Thank you, Councillor Munsell. We didn't have any start and finish groups last year. We did have the year before. I'm looking at Councillor Levitt here to actually say if that's or the year before that. And possibly whoever's in this group next year has got to look at the difference between the start and finish groups and call to account. And so that the members actually are aware of both and aware of when each might suit a particular set of circumstances. Okay. Anything else on that? Any more debate on that? So can we please go to vote, please, Susan? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Before you get to the vote, just go and have a bit on mix.
Previous votes, so it came up 7-0.
Just have a
I wasn't even on the
pause a
screen.
moment, Chair,
No.
while we
Yes.
just
Yeah, so we'll have a pause just while we plumb
sort
Councillor
take the
Debenham in.
difficulties out.
Yeah.
You okay?
Are we okay? Shall we go to the vote?
Chair, what we'll do is we'll acknowledge mixed voting.
Yeah, that motion is carried.
If you want to let us know which way it is. Just include enough on minutes that
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Item 11, Council Delivery Plan, third quarter update and projects for 2025. Rachel Cooper to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the third quarter update on the council delivery plan. And this quarter, we've also provided the list of proposed projects that will make up the 24-25 CDP to be approved by Cabinet. Once approved, these projects will be reported on a quarterly basis from September this year. So page 43, 8.4 of the report, we have 15 projects with proposed changes to milestone dates this quarter. So all of the changes and the reasons are highlighted in yellow on Appendix A. The majority of the changes relate to available resources, 2 relate to a change in approach on the project, and 3 are due to delays in being notified of grant awards. So the Churchgate project has new milestone dates added relating to the appointment of specialist support for the master plan process and investment prospectus presented at UK REEF, apologies if I've pronounced that incorrectly. That's the UK's Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum. So these are highlighted in green on Appendix A. Page 43, 8.6, this quarter we're proposing to add the digital transformation project to the CDP with a risk score of 6. No projects have been completed in this quarter. Page 44, 8.8, we've used the prioritisation tool for the first time to identify the projects to be included in the 24-25 CDP. As part of the moderation process, it's determined that the CDP should focus on projects where there's a defined plan of how they will be delivered. So table 1 shows the results of the process that was followed. Projects would meet the CDP criteria if they achieve 2 or more green scores against key criteria, which are impact of non-delivery, council plan alignment, external benefits, and contribution towards financial sustainability. So the green lines on the table will be included in the plan. Orange lines may be included if we get a defined delivery plan, and all other projects will not be included. So this has allowed us to reduce the number of projects. So there'll be a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 14 currently, as opposed to the 27 projects that we are currently reporting on. So this should help to make the quarterly updates more focused. The budget proposals this year also included additional resource for some of the leisure projects. It is expected that the CDP projects will be prioritised resource-wise, and other lower priority projects may be delayed as a result. As it's a live document, projects can be added back onto the CDP at any time if they meet the required criteria. So page 47, 8.9, we currently have two overarching risks for cybersecurity and resourcing, and we're proposing to add a further risk relating to availability of financial resources. 8.10, it's also recommended that we develop a new set of corporate performance indicators to help us give an overall view of how the council is performing. So this could include customer services performance, customer satisfaction and complaints, HR and resourcing, and environmental sustainability. So page 51, Appendix A provides the quarterly update on the projects themselves. So 14 projects have green status and 13 have amber status. So just to give some verbal updates on this, page 53, the finalised pay on exit parking review. The contract has now been awarded. The replacement parking machines will include various payment options, which include a tap-in, tap-out system, which is an alternative to pay on exit. So this option enables visitors to register their vehicle on arrival and then pay on their return. So the intention is to run a trial of the new payment system in a number of car parks in the summer, followed by a full rollout programme. The details of the trial and the implementation programme are to be discussed with the supplier at a meeting planned in early April, and members will be informed once the programme has been agreed. Page 60, the Royston Leisure Centre thermal and solar PV on leisure centres. We have been awarded 7.7 million in funding under the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So both of these projects have now been included in the proposed CDP for 24-25. Page 68, the Local Authority Housing Fund. The government have now asked for expressions of interest for phase 3. So it's going to be raised under this item at Cabinet to get delegated approval to ask for phase 3 funding. It will depend on what can be delivered by local registered providers. And then finally, page 72, the waste procurement, just to say the call for final tenders has now gone out. That's all I was going to mention on the report. However, we did receive some questions prior to the meeting from Councillor Barnes. So thank you for those. And Chair, I can either read out questions and officer responses, or I can circulate this to members following the meeting.
Thank you. Could we deal with the questions here, please, Rachel?
Yeah, certainly. So the first question was around the health inequalities, and was asking where or can we see the plans that are mentioned in the update. The officers responded that there isn't really anywhere that councillors can view the plans, as they're just working documents between us and HCC, and we wouldn't make these publicly available usually, particularly for a fund as small as this one. However, they've said we fund 3 pieces of work, which is the horticultural therapy placements for individuals living with or recovering from mental health conditions. The Men's Club, a 4-week group programme providing physical and mental health group tutorials and exercise opportunities. Emotional wellbeing groups in Royston led by Mind in Mid Herts. So all of the programmes are about to finish for 23-24. And currently the office is unsure what HCC will fund in 24-25, as they do not wish to meet until late April. But obviously updates can be provided following that. The second question...
Rachel, can I just check with Councillor Barnes after each one that he's
yes.
That he hasn't got any supplementary questions? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you, Rachel.
So the second and third relate to the waste. So the first is waste and street cleaning procurement still has a risk rating of 9. I understand there are significant external risks, but is capacity of key staff still a risk here? If so, what is being done about that? And then the officer has answered this in conjunction with the next question, which is the waste depots. So this question was, note the intention to remove from the plan, but also the risk that existing depot is not fit for purpose. Will the existing depot be fit for purpose for the new contract? If not, what is the mitigation for this? So it's quite a long answer, so please bear with me. The risk is likely to remain high throughout the project for a number of reasons. In particular, the availability of a suitable depot has not yet been secured, and neither therefore has the work begun to ensure it is fit for purpose for the start of the contract, for example, electric vehicle infrastructure. Availability of key staff will remain a risk throughout the project because of the small client team operating on behalf of two authorities. The client team is expecting a vacancy later this year, and vacancies, even if temporary, will pose a risk if not filled with suitable staff. There are also significant pieces of work needed by corporate teams linked to customer services and online reporting functionality, and the provision of a garden waste web portal, which cannot be fully assessed and planned until the award of the contract. The statutory guidance on simpler recycling has not yet been published, and therefore the contract will likely be let with some unknowns, which may impact the contract in the future. The costs of the contract are still likely to be over existing budgets, despite work to mitigate these costs, and the mobilisation of the contract has been delayed, increasing the risks of a successful contract start. As this is a high-risk project, it is subject to a high level of project management and is being overseen by a project board. Work to mitigate risks is ongoing, but the size of this contract and its impact will mean that risks will remain high.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. That's fine. Thank you, Rachel. Go to the next one.
Okay, the next one relates to town centre recovery. So when are the experimental TROs being made permanent? When are the works being carried out? And who is responsible for that, particularly the ones in Royston? So the responses for Hitchin, the Hitchin Town Centre restricted parking zone and pedestrian zone experimental TROs were made permanent and came into effect on the 18th of August 2023. An amendment to the restricted zone order for the relocation of the goods vehicle loading bay outside the War Memorial came into effect on the 19th of February 2024. No further works is required regarding these TROs. And then for Royston, the Royston Town Centre restricted parking zone experimental TRO was made permanent, came into effect again on the 18th of August 2023. Officers have been in contact with the HCC Highways Strategy and Programme Manager, who has advised that works in the High Street are due to take place in June 2024. Officers have asked for details of the works. It is understood that the work should include replacing the planters at the junction of High Street and John Street with suitable bollards. And that was the last of them.
Questions, your answers. Do we have further comments? Now, what you're going to have to do is make sure you're very clear which part of this long report you're referring to. And can you please make sure that it's your concentration on this third quarter. Any questions? Councillor Levitt.
Yeah, I think you said that the waste tenders have now gone out. How many have gone out?
Can you answer that, please, Rachel?
I am not sure off the top of my head. I did have a figure in my head, but I wouldn't want to say that in a public meeting if it was incorrect. So I will get that answer back to you.
Thank you. I have also heard they've gone out and can't remember how many there were.
Right, okay. I do have a second question or
Carry on.
comment. Just looking at the enterprise strategy, which in the main report is in a red one. Of course, it doesn't no longer meets, and it's not going to go into next year's one. During the budget report we had at full council, one of the mentioned, I can't get it because I haven't got it on this computer, was it mentioned additional income streams to boost the revenue, and it actually mentioned within that the enterprise strategy to do it. Now, if we haven't got an enterprise strategy in place, how's that going to tie in with the need to raise additional income and additional revenue?
So the enterprise strategy has been removed from the council delivery plan because it doesn't meet the criteria. However, that doesn't mean it's not going to be written. So officers will still be working on that as a business as usual project.
Okay, but yeah, that surely puts some risk on what was forecast in the budget for future years.
Are you able to answer that, Rachel?
I'm not, but again, I can take that away. So you want to know what risk it poses to the budget if the enterprise strategy isn't completed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that, I think it's Councillor Munster?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Rachel, for, as ever, an incredibly comprehensive review of the delivery plan. It's quite clear that what's being proposed is quite a substantial change to how the council delivery plan is presented to both Cabinet and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And what I was wondering was whether or not we have considered formatting the delivery plan in a way in which is more accessible to the public and in which provides greater clarity as to the council's aims, the milestones, any issues of which are obviously risk factors, but any issues which could arise potentially in the project. I mean, prior to the meeting, I've had a look at a number of different local authorities within the vicinity of Hertfordshire, and it seems that they present their council delivery plan in a way of which is a little bit clearer and easy to understand. And I was just wondering whether or not, as we're reviewing this, whether that's something which officers have considered.
Can I just add to that, Rachel? I seem to remember, was it this time last year? It's a very quick year if it was, that we talked about training at the back end of the programme for councillors. And I just wonder if that is available and whether councillors have actually taken part in the training. Thank you.
On risk, I believe there was some risk training carried out prior to a previous meeting by Ian Cooper, Service Director Resources. I know we're trying to get some, well, it's called Ideagen now, but it was Pentana, our performance software, some video guides there for members so that they can access, because there is obviously the guest login on SharePoint. So we'll be looking at that, and obviously we can certainly take that away if training sessions are required on how the council delivery plan is put together and how you can read it. With regard to the other point, obviously this is a live document. I think partly this document is so large because there are so many projects on here, so it's very difficult to get more information on this report relating to each project. So the delivery plan is meant to be an overarching document, so it gives a high level overview of each of the projects. The reasoning behind linking the risks and performance indicators was so that you could see everything in one place, because previously reports coming through here were split into projects, performance indicators, risks didn't come through this committee at all. So you didn't see any of the project related risks, which does give you a lot of context around what has to be done in order to achieve these projects, what has to be overcome. So I think with the prioritisation tool, cutting down the number of projects, it means there are less projects on this report, which means potentially we're able to keep the milestones, we're able to put the information in there that the committee needs to see to be able to make those reasoned adjustments. So at the moment, what's happening is we report on the risks, but you don't actually see what we're doing about those risks. So if you go into Ideagen, the performance software, you can actually see work that has been completed against each of those risks in order to mitigate, and also ongoing work that's needed in order to bring those risk scores down to their target score. Sometimes there, you can't get down lower than the current score, and that is where you have to accept that that risk is there and you're not going to be able to reduce it. I think that hopefully if we're looking at 11 projects as opposed to 27, we're halving this report, the actual number of projects, which means that the information we can put in there will be more meaningful and more easily readable as well. And obviously we can keep that under review as we go through the monitoring year.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to turn to Mel now. I think and ask members' views on this, would be really useful is in the induction training, the training for councillors in May, June, that in fact the overview and scrutiny part of it also includes the Pentana, it's got a new name, I can't remember, an idea gen, how to use them to actually drill down, and if these video guides are available for then. I wouldn't have thought it's sort of a day one piece of training for a new councillor, but maybe towards the autumn when we've got established members on overviewing scrutiny, that in fact we have training then, and that we actually have dedicated training. Can I have your thoughts on that, please? Councillor Munson.
Thank you. No, I think that's a really good idea, Chair. And I think actually when we are inducting members of the new Overview and Scrutiny Committee, actually, if we could have a presentation as to how decisions at the council are actually taken, and to sort of work out how the reports of which are presented to us fit into the, the council delivery plan and everything like that, because there are an awful lot of really important documents, strategic documents of which exist, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult to actually figure out where the documents of which are and the papers which are in front of us fit within those strategies, if I'm making myself clear. So I think that would also be really quite useful as well.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
Again, pretty much what Ralph said, but one of the things is a good time to do it would actually be either start an overview and scrutiny committee early and do it before that meeting. Then you've got everybody in one place rather than trying to find a date when everybody's together. At least you've got the set date. And same really for any specialist training. If we need updates and that, we can have it just before starting a committee early. It makes it much easier to get
specialist
people
training.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. What others think about that? Good. It's generally so agree to that. Thank you. So any other questions for Rachel? Yes, certainly.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up, Rachel, because I'm conscious of the fact that with this new strategy, we're going to be reducing the amount of projects of which are on the delivery plan from 27 down to 11. And my concern is that those projects of which are then removed from the council delivery plan, how are we then going to be monitoring the progress of which is made? Because there are certain projects such as, the new waste depot or the enterprise strategy, of which have a financial impact on the council. How are we going to be able to see what progress is being made?
So they won't be reported. Sorry, they won't be. Sorry.
Carry on.
Okay, they won't be reported through this committee as part of the council delivery plan. The idea is that, as you can see from all the ambers on the projects we've got on the report at the moment, resourcing is an issue, and by cutting them down to the projects that we believe are most closely aligned with our council plan and our council priorities, it means that we can devote the resources to those key projects. The other projects, it's likely they will continue, and that investigations will be continuing with some of those. So, for example, the Charnwood House and that project, that will still be investigating options, still continuing with that. And once we come up with a plan that can show how we're going to deliver a project, that will jump onto the council delivery plan. So as I say, it's a live document. So as soon as projects that are underway, that are going on in departments, reach that point where they meet those criteria that they're going to be reported on, they will be added back into the plan and you will see those. If they don't meet that criteria and we're unable to provide a clear delivery plan, then it's not something that this committee can monitor anyway. So it's just wasting space on the report technically. And I think that the resourcing issue is something that is clearly being addressed by this change in approach, so that our prioritised projects have the resources available to ensure that these milestones aren't slipping because we have the people in place and the project has the import that is being dealt with as a priority. And I think the others, you can ask for updates if there are particular areas, for example, where you would like progress. You can ask officers to provide updates on those if you require those, but they won't actually be reported to the committee formally.
Thank you, Rachel. Charnwood House is one that I queried at the chair's briefing yesterday because it's actually got a revenue stream in next year's budget, hasn't it? But it was explained to me that in fact that is for when there actually are the options are worked out, as it were. That's why it's not there at the moment. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Have I got it right?
Yes, that's correct. And once an option has been worked out, it will be marked against the prioritisation tool. And again, that will probably appear on the council delivery plan throughout the 24-25 year.
Thank you. Councillor Levitt.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where the point comes where it's no longer on the council delivery plan, and that because it hasn't got priority order resources, and the project's abandoned altogether, ditched and got rid of. So we're going to have some projects, so we're going to have projects like Charnwood House that are still ongoing in the background but don't meet the criteria. But then we'll have other ones that disappear altogether. But so how will we know what's still being worked on in the background, what has a chance of coming forward?
Rachel?
That won't be reported to this committee, as I say. I think projects ongoing within service areas will obviously be discussed with exec members, service directors, and if there's the decision resourcing in particular, if there's no reason to continue with a project because it's deemed as low priority, it doesn't meet the council plan priorities, at some point decisions have to be made as to whether we should be doing these things at all if resources are scarce.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's knowing what's still there and live, and like, because those, even if it's been put on a back burner, there are still resources associated with it until it's dumped altogether, and that's what concerns me a little bit, that that's spreading out of the resources that are available.
Can we have that minuted as a question, as a thought that we've got to come back to?
Mm.
So I think it's important.
Please.
Councillor Barnes.
I was just going to comment on that, really. I think I understand the concerns, but I guess we can't really have it both ways. We can't have a shorter report and then also still want everything inside it. So I'm not really sure how we address it. There will still be resource allocated through the budget and budget monitoring and that kind of thing, I suppose, and through the executive briefings and shadow exec, shadow exec briefings as well. So maybe something through there is suitable. And obviously we have the right to call in an exec member if we want to ask about projects that are within their portfolio that aren't on the plan explicitly. So I think we just have to think a bit differently about it, maybe.
So, Councillor Barnes, are you talking about the executive briefings in MIS?
No, I'm talking about it with the cabinet members and the shadow cabinet.
So where would councillors see this, if not MIS?
Well, they wouldn't, but it would be, I guess, if there was a concern, then it could be addressed through that channel. So not direct. So, speaking to the relevant cabinet member or shadow cabinet member about a project would be one way of raising a concern that could then be brought to this committee at a later point, I suppose.
Can we have that minuted as something that we need to look into?
It's not necessarily a solution, but it's an idea.
Councillor Munster.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just bring us back to talking about the resourcing? Because since I've been a member of this committee, since I think it was, this time or thereabouts this time last year, every council delivery plan I've seen, we've got issues with resourcing, and as a result, we're having to push deadlines back. This is apparently going to help to alleviate those pressures on resourcing. Is there anything else that the council is doing at this moment in time? Is there anything else that your team, Rachel, is doing, which is also going to help alleviate those pressures on resourcing and hopefully mean that actually we're going to see a reduction in the amount of deadlines of which are slipping? Is this part of a wider strategy, I think is what I'm trying to get at.
It is, it's part of our HR strategy. Obviously, it's dealt with by our HR department. We did actually bring an update from HR and resourcing to a previous committee meeting. I can't remember which one it was. They gave a detailed update on what work they were doing to help with the two strands, which is recruitment and then retention of staff. So we can certainly get an update on that to bring back or to circulate prior to the next meeting.
Thank you. David, can you think when that, I can't think when that was. It's probably quite a while ago. I think it's probably time for it to come back
Yeah.
in the work programme for next year.
Yeah, I think it probably is time for it to come out. I think it was about 18 months ago, something like that from memory, 18, 20 months ago.
Your thoughts that we bring that back to re-examine that about the resources, about HR, put it on the work screen. Thank you. Councillor Levitt, is that an old hand?
It was just coming back to this stuff that's not prioritised anymore, but still exists. And I'm not asking for any detailed report, just sort of a list of these are the ones that are on the back burner, and a remark now dead or still live, and just something really, really simple like that without going into detail. That way we don't lose sight of what's going on in the background.
What do you think about that, Rachel?
Well, I think the proposed projects on the council delivery plan obviously clearly indicate which projects are just business as usual. So, for example, the leisure procurement, you wouldn't want to know how the leisure contract was running as a project once it's actually been awarded and is in place. Some of them, then, yes, I mean, we can, I suppose what you're asking for is you just want to know if they're going to be shelved as opposed to if there is work still ongoing within the service areas. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. And just the point on the leisure one, I would like to know what's happening after it's been awarded at some point to monitor how successful it was, to be perfectly honest. But yes, the point about has it been shelved or not? Yeah.
It's Rachel, it's just a thing that's top of my head. Is that something we could actually add to this quarterly report?
We can, I mean, I can take that idea away. Obviously, the purpose of the prioritisation is that we get the committee to focus on the key projects for the council to help deliver the council plan. But I can certainly have that discussion with my manager to see how we could take that forward.
Thank you, Chair. Just one final question, Rachel. I'm looking specifically on page 47, paragraph 8.10. You mentioned that we're going to be reviewing, our targets from a sort of a more corporate perspective, particularly, customer service and, customer satisfaction, etc. What's the difference between what's proposed here and what we already do when we're talking about, for example, the 3 C's, I think it is, and the district-wide survey of which is carried out and sort of provides additional information to that? Would you just be able to put a little bit more meat on the bone, so to speak?
Not a great deal, to be honest, because these are just proposals at the moment. So once we have fleshed out the actual performance indicators that we're going to be reporting on and the targets that we can set against them, then that will come through this committee, because obviously it will be added into the council delivery plan for 24-25. I think with regard to the 3 C's, there obviously will be some overlap there, and that's something we'll look at. Their data collection will obviously feed into what we're going to be reporting to you. So there may be some joint working there to get those figures together. And then I think if you look at the council delivery plan as it is at the moment, there are very few performance indicators on there. And the reason for that is because performance indicators generally relating to projects don't start until the project has been delivered and is in place and the contract's up and running, and then you can start to monitor, by which point that project has been taken off the council delivery plan. So you end up with a list of PIs that actually don't seem to relate to anything. And I think that while we're looking at this chance to overhaul it, we want to look at what is actually important to the council. So as a corporation, what do we want to report on? What do we want to know about the council? And these proposed areas are tied into, obviously, our priorities in serving our customers and being able to meet environmental as well as financial commitments.
Any other questions? Okay. So the recommendations. 2.1, that the committee notes the progress against council projects as set out in this council delivery plan, Appendix A, including changes to milestones, performance indicators and risks, and makes any recommendations or comments to Cabinet. 2.2, that the committee identifies any projects which they would like to receive a more detailed update. 2.3, the committee recommends to Cabinet the scope of the 24-25 Council Delivery Plan as detailed in paragraphs 8.8 to 8.10. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Barnes?
Yeah, happy to propose.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Griffiths.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Shall we have debate? Councillor Munsell.
Thank you, Chair. I think since the last time this report came before this committee, progress has been made on a number of different issues. Thankfully, we have had grants secured, for example, the Royston Leisure Centre solar contract and the solar PV on leisure centres. That's hopefully going to be moving forward those projects. I think there is a concern, though, particularly surrounding the waste depots and the lack of progress and the delays of which are being put in place on that. Now, as we all know, the waste contract goes live in May 2025. There is not much room for manoeuvre here. If timelines and timescales are delayed, that's going to have a knock-on impact on our residents. It's going to have a knock-on impact on waste service provision. So this is really a project of which needs, in my opinion, to be prioritised significantly. It needs probably to be the most fitting priority of this council at this moment, because if we don't have that, then as I said, it's going to have a knock-on impact on the waste service provision. I do have slight concerns as to how we're going to be moving forward with the presentation of the council delivery plan with Pentana or Iogen or whatever it's called. How are the public going to see this? The public have a right to see the risks of which are being taken with their money. It's important that actually they're able to read these documents, that they're able to understand the risks and actually come and participate in these meetings and hold our executive members and hold us to account as councillors about how we're spending that money, for example. But equally as well, we need to ensure that the council delivery plan, whilst yes, there is going to be a long report, if it needs to be long, then so be it. It's vital as an overview and scrutiny committee that we have oversight and scrutiny of a plethora of issues within this authority. Those active projects, yes, making sure that we're going on appropriate timescales, but equally as well, where those projects are being shelved or are at risk of being shelved, or there are significant delays, we then need to actually be aware of those projects, and if so, look in further. And that's my concern with us moving forward with this current process. I understand the rationale and I understand the reasons for it, and there is a very good logic to that, but equally as well, we do need to consider these other points also.
Thank you. I think we may have covered some of those points already, with some suggestions for next year, the training and so on. And fortunately, I don't think we've got anybody who knows enough about the waste depots here tonight. It'll have to be a written one. Okay, Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing really to add to the debate. I think I covered most of what I wanted to say in the questions earlier on. So just picking up on those points about, answers due back on the tenders, and can we look at find some way of looking at back burner project, as it were.
Any other comments for the debate? Shall we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
How would you have voted? 9. Thank you. Item 12, safeguarding information note. Please note this item is for noting only. The information note provides an update following the shared internal audit service report recommendations as presented to the committee in September 2023. SIAS, shortened version, recommended that in addition to the annual reports, the committee updates were provided in year on recommendations until fully completed, and are therefore provided as an information note and appendices. If it didn't make sense, I will read it again.
Sounds explained.
It says it's explained in the report. Do members have any comments or questions about that? Councillor Griffiths.
It's about the members training. That only 2 members have completed the safeguarding training. I appreciate that there is only so much asking that the council can do. I don't think there was ever an answer to the question, probably a legitimate question of, for example, myself as a teacher who's had so much safeguarding training over the past years that is constantly up to date. I appreciate that it doesn't transfer, and I appreciate again that it takes 20 minutes, but I know some members have asked, is there any way that it could be noted that safeguarding has been completed within their line of work, for example, as a DBS check, such as myself or others, and whether that question has been considered?
I know it's been considered because I remember Elizabeth giving an answer to it and accepting that lots of do have this sort of training at work, but there are also different kinds of safeguarding training, depending which groups you're working with. But I think the fact, yes, to actually clarify that, to make sure we've got records, I think we'll take it away. That's a really good point. Councillor Levitt.
I was about to raise the same point, actually. And I think the answer was that, yeah, in some cases it would be acceptable and others you may have to have extra. The other point that came out about that was the access to Grow Zone, that you do need to have access to a council laptop to be able to access the Grow Zone. And there was some talk about different ways of being able to access it under a new system. And I don't think anything ever came back on that one. So if we could follow that one up, is can you access it can you access it as a guest or something like that through a guest portal rather than have to go in through the full system?
I didn't know it's a problem because I can access, as I say, if you can access it, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
If you can't, it's a great problem. So we take that back. Comments. So the recommendation is that the safeguarding information provided be noted. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mason. And a seconder, please. Councillor Debenham. Debate. No debate. Right, shall we have the vote, please, Susan?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 13, overview and scrutiny committee work programme. Melanie Simpson to present.
Thank you, Chair. So the work programme report has been compiled from the report cycle, the forward plan, as well as discussions with the Chair, Vice Chair and officers. And if we just start with the forward plan, so that includes within your agenda pack the most recently published version of that, which was published ahead of the Cabinet meeting in March. Obviously, some of those items are contained within that report forward plan as being a decision by the end of June, which once the new forward plan's updated, those dates will then change as well. If we refer to the actual work programme, the strategic housing policy item has been removed from the work programme following agreement with the Vice Chair, as this was providing a briefing to members in December 23, and the slides from this briefing were shared with members ahead of the meeting this evening. After tonight's meeting, obviously all of those items on there have been considered, all bar there is still the item regarding the call to account the Chair's report following Harkness Court project. And if we then move on to the LGA peer review, one of those items on there was regarding the scrutiny officer. So following interviews at the end of January, there has been a scrutiny officer appointed. They are due to start with the authority on the 26th of March, working over Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays. And we have training organised with the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny on the 5th of June. That will be advertised to all members, not just members of the Overview and Scrutiny, and all members will be encouraged to attend that. Regarding the work programme setting, monthly meetings are taking place with the Chair, the Vice Chair and lead officers to discuss upcoming items and as well as potential items for future meetings. And obviously members are encouraged to suggest any items for inclusion at the meetings. Cabinet members continue to be invited and expected to present at relevant overview and scrutiny meetings on particular reports. And the Chair and Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny are also encouraged to attend the Cabinet meetings where relevant as well. Referrals from Overview and Scrutiny are also included in the next resolutions report, which also include the Cabinet outcomes. So obviously, Chair, members have already discussed and noted one item to be included on the work programme in terms of recruitment and retention work going on regarding that. So that item, we can include that on the programme. We'll also acknowledge, not necessarily on the work programme, but as a changing item in terms of the work being done in terms of the council delivery plan. And we could include that as a bite-sized training item before one of the Overview Scrutiny meetings. Not necessarily the June one, but sometime in the autumn time. So, Chair, I think that's all I have to say at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mel? Councillor Levitt?
Looking at the forward plan, Chair, could I ask, imposing on whoever might be here next after May, about the leisure investment options as being a potential item to come to overview and scrutiny?
Have we done what it's got?
On the forward plan for 30th of June.
Which one is it? Which one is it? It's not there. Because it's not there, you want to have it.
Councillor Levitt, can you just repeat that bit? Was that already featured on the forward plan? Are you looking?
Yeah. It's on the one I've just downloaded tonight, the public's report pack. page 3,
Page 2.
page 97 on the agenda pack. It's in big, it's in bold, it's in block
Yeah.
capitals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Munster?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the LGA peer review report in front of me, but I was just wondering whether or not Mel could inform us whether or not there are any structural or constitutional changes of which are going to be forthcoming as a result of that to the nature of overview and scrutiny.
I'm not sure in terms of relation to the corporate peer challenge. Obviously, the agenda includes the ones relevant to overview scrutiny. One of the recommendations you may remember that they did make was in terms of timings of meetings, in the fact that they believed that the start times of our meetings generally started too late, especially in terms of making, decisions and as the meetings progress later and later. And also, if you recall from council, we have got the governance working project board will be starting post May. So that's going to feed into any sort of changes that members will want in terms of the governance side of things. So that's where the changes are going to come, rather than one would hope those will feed into that as well.
And this year we've had the scrutiny officer.
Yeah, we've got
Being
scrutiny
appointed.
officer in post, which actually it starts at quite a nice time in the fact that they'll have been in post and be able to start from the new intake.
Because we had one before, Eleanor. So that has been this year's big improvement, from what I can see.
There aren't going to be any proposals coming forward in the meeting, for example, of council in April for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to be merged with FAR. They are going to remain two separate committees.
I can't tell you what that will be. Obviously, it will be for members to feed into those proposals and make those decisions.
Thank you. Any others? So recommendations, 2.1. The committee prioritises topics for inclusion in the work programme attached as Appendix A, and where appropriate determines a high-level form and timing of scrutiny input. 2.2, that the committee, having considered the most recent iteration of the forward plan as attached as Appendix B, suggests a list of items to be considered as its meetings in the coming civic year. 2.3, that the corporate peer challenge action plan as attached as Appendix C be considered. So we've done that, haven't we? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Wright-Mason, and a seconder, Councillor Barnes. And should we have to debate? No? Shall we go to the vote? Hey, Susan.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Lovely. So at the close of this meeting, I'd like to note it's the final overview and scrutiny meeting of the civic year, and wish you all well in your future endeavours. Good evening. Thank you.